So tomorrow marks the start of interviews with the 4 shortlisted candidates for the vacant position of Chief Justice of South Africa. Constitutional Court Justice Mbuyiseli Madlanga, Acting Chief Justice Raymond Zondo, Supreme Court of Appeal President Mandisa, and Gauteng Judge President Dunstan Mlambo, all said to be interviewed by the Judicial Service Commission over the next 4 days, starting from tomorrow. After that, the JSC will submit a report to President Cyril Ramaphosa, who will then make that final decision. For a sense of what else to consider, let's bring in Newzroom Afrika contributor Dianne Hawker, who's with us in studio this morning. Dianne, always great chatting to you. Thanks for popping by. I guess as a start, we should be asking ourselves more broadly, what really makes a good Chief Justice? I know that question is going to be answered in some way or the other in the next 4 days.
Well, absolutely, Ayanda, because it's not a normal judicial position. You know, most judges are tasked mainly with just making sure that they make good legal decisions. But the Chief Justice is actually the head of the court and is the head of the office of the Chief Justice. So there is a significant administrative role involved in that. They have to ensure that cases move swiftly through the justice system. The office of the Chief Justice also has its own budget, for example, and also just has to ensure that various issues that face judges are being dealt with, such as technology in courts, that they're able to do their work. So there's a definite emphasis, or there will be a definite emphasis on administrative work, but also being the head of the Constitutional Court, there'll also be an emphasis on their legal understanding of the Constitution and other key issues that we're grappling with as a nation when it comes to the judiciary. Yeah,
what might be helpful to ordinary South Africans who feel out of their depth by just following these interviews is that we'll be dealing with one candidate per day. So at least There's a way to streamline your thinking. And speaking about that, what do we know about these candidates?
Yes, you're correct, Diana. One candidate per day, which gives them quite a lot of time to actually speak to each of them. 2 of the candidates are current Constitutional Court judges, and that's Justice Zondo and Justice Madlanga, which one might say does count in their favor. But considering that there's a 12-year term limit for Constitutional Court judges, it could actually be a bit of a disadvantage to them because their terms end in 2024 and 2025, respectively. And then you've got 2 other judges who are heads of other courts. So they've got a strong administrative advantage, but they haven't been working at the Constitutional Court. Justice Maya is the senior of the 2. She's been the head of the Supreme Court of Appeal for quite some time. And then you've got Judge Mlambo, who is the head of the Gauteng High Court Division, which is South Africa's biggest High Court division. It's split into 2. It's got a Pretoria and a Johannesburg sort of branch. And it's a very active division, which means that administratively he's definitely had a lot of work to do. So we'll be weighing those kind of things, or the JSC will be weighing those kind of advantages and disadvantages in this process.
It's interesting you bring that up, right? Because what they have to consider is how long can any candidate potentially be in that post. So what you're saying is that the Chief Justice, the current Acting Chief Justice, that is Raymond Zondo, he, because of this term limit, will have to be out of the Constitutional Court by 2024.
Correct.
And Justice Madlanga will have until 2025.
Yes, that's correct. So the JSC would have to consider, for example, and this did come up in other interviews, whether to appoint someone who has a longer term limit or a longer time to potentially be in the court, who could actually add value for a longer period of time, or have someone who does have that institutional memory, but that institutional memory would only be in play for about a 2 to 3 year period in the case of these 2 judges. If you look at Justice Mlambo and Justice Maya, for example, Judge Mlambo and Justice Maya, they would only have acted at the Constitutional Court, but they would have that ability to stay and give stability to the judiciary for a longer period of time. And I believe that's amongst the key questions that will come up at the Judicial Service Commission interviews.
Stability is certainly what we need, especially when you consider how long this post has actually been vacant for. Very quickly, the legacy that Mogoeng leaves behind, how do we characterize it as we prepare for this process?
I think it's definitely a mixed legacy. From the perspective of administrative work, I think many in the legal profession and in the judiciary will say he did a good job. He was the first Chief Justice to kind of set up the Office of the Chief Justice, and the Office of the Chief Justice has, begun running very smoothly. And you see that things like case flow management have been prioritized to make sure that courts operate operate much more smoothly. In some instances, technology has also improved. You've got technology such as case lines, where lawyers can now access the records online without having to physically go to court, which has been a big advantage during the pandemic. But then you've got the issue that the Chief Justice is still sitting, or the former Chief Justice is still sitting with an apology, a pending apology that the nation is waiting for. And also there is the question about the handling of the previous interviews for judges at the Constitutional Court, which I think did leave a blemish on his record. So very much of a mixed legacy in that regard.
And I imagine we'll continue ventilating that in the week ahead. Thank you so much for popping by. Certainly a lot to look forward to. Great anticipation, not only for those in that legal profession, but certainly ordinary South Africans who have a vested interest in finding out who the 6th Chief Justice of South Africa will be. Dianne Hawker, of course, Newzroom Afrika contributor.